Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Dr. Sadiq Nasir. He is a seasoned technology professional with over 20 years of experience in the tech industry. He's the CEO of NetSwitch Limited, global speaker on AI, cybersecurity, and leadership. So we learn from him how to communicate above average in the age of AI, why cybersecurity failures are often human, and how leaders can explain complex tech decisions without causing panic. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sadiq.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome once again. Welcome to India in this online form, Dr. Sadiq. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about artificial intelligence, we'll talk about cybersecurity, talk about leadership communication. But first, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Okay. My name is Sadiq Nasir. I'm based out here in Nigeria. I had my undergraduate from the University of Kent, and I also have a master's from Oxford Brookes University. And I do have doctorate in management from Catholic University, Spain. So over the last couple of years, I set up this company called NetSwitch, where we do lots of projects and services around digital transformation, cybersecurity, and corporate training, and a bunch of other solutions that we provide centered around business and technology. So that's a bit about me.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Sadiq. So I want to understand from you, what is it that you want to tell people about cybersecurity, about AI? You seem to be quite bullish about artificial intelligence. Tell us a bit about your reason for being, that makes you so strong proponent of artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence is a concept that has been there for a number of years. However, with the emergence of generative AI products such as ChatGPT and the like, everyone is now awake to the realities of this conversation, which is a good one. Artificial intelligence makes life easy for us. It makes our workflows a lot more seamless. But this comes with a bit of a caveat. We need to remind ourselves artificial intelligence is just a tool. It's supposed to enable us to carry out our work effectively. We should not delegate our thinking, our workflows, everything hook, line, and sinker to AI. I'll give you a specific example. When I started using ChatGPT, I was asked to come up with a proposal. And I came up with a beautiful proposal with 1, 2, 3 lines of prompts, which makes a lot of sense. I was like, wow, okay, this could be the future. So I simply pushed out to the individual that would review the proposal before passing on to the client. And as soon as he saw the figures at the last page, he called me up. He says, "Hi, Sadiq." I said, "Yes, how are you?" He said, "Hi, Sadiq." I said, "Yes, what is it?" He said, "How many times did I call you?" I said, "You called me twice." He says, "Have you looked at the figures?" I said, "Yeah, it's accurate. What's the problem?" He says, "No, everything doesn't add up." So that's when it hit me that as much as these AI tools are there to complement our work, we should not delegate and relegate our abilities. So what I should have done, what I later learned was, when we use AI is never perfect. Okay, we need to prompt and iterate until we get the desired result. And that's when I said, okay, I think we need to be more careful around this chat GPT and this generative AI, because as much as we think that it might replace us, it might make life easy, not really. It's just supposed to complement our effort. So since then, I made it a point that, okay, look, whenever I get the opportunity to speak to business leaders, I need to remind them that, look, AI is a tool. AI is not going to replace our jobs, and AI is to complement our task. And by so doing, I've been able to create this awareness around several leaders around the world. And an important thing to understand is there are still some people that have not really risen up to woken up rather to what AI is and what AI could do. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to educate these people so that they can be properly guided, especially those working in public sector organizations, those that may not necessarily have the privileges to experience world-class trainings. We're talking about teachers here as well, who may not necessarily have access to quality trainings in order to understand how AI is. So I think generally, once we have this fundamental understanding, then we can begin to use AI in a complementary way that it can help us scale our business. And even in the developed nations, we see a lots of AI solutions being deployed here and there. And in recent reports, it suggests that a large number of these AI solutions are failing. So the question is, why are they failing? That's a big question. I mean, there's a lot of theoretical proposition as to this is why these solutions fail, this is why it could have been done better, it could have been deployed better. But yes, that's true. But a lot of these organizations deploy AI with the means of replacing human activity, which by so doing, is a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned. So the better way to look at AI is to look at it that, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What are our current business objectives? What do we aspire to be? What are the current potentials of AI? And once we have this understanding, then we can begin to come up with a possible roadmap, and then we can begin to implement a phase-by-phase approach towards these solutions. I mean, if you look at the several solutions out there when it comes to AI, a lot of them are still under development. Okay. Now, when you look at it critically, when you look at generative AI, for example, those that are supposed to make facial, like pictures and videos, a lot of them don't really quite reproduce the same feature. So what I mean by that is, say for example, you take my picture and then you put it in most of the generative AI solutions. It gives you off, like, it changes my looks entirely. For those people that know me, they'll be like, that's not Sadiq. So what I'm trying to say is generative AI is not really quite there yet. So as much as we are adopting these solutions for our workflow, we need to examine the desired output versus what AI is giving us, so that we can be able to benchmark where we're going to avoid failures. And without this 360 evaluation, we keep getting it wrong. And another thing that AI presents to us, those that are coming from developing economy, such as Nigeria and perhaps India, it gives us that equalizer or platform where we can leapfrog from where we are to where we aspire to be, where the developing countries are. And this has to be done with careful consideration. Now, the next subtopic I would like to look at is the issue of local content. There is need for developing economies such as India, such as Nigeria, and other parts of Africa to start thinking of how they can develop their own proprietary solutions when it comes to AI. And there's a reason for that. A lot of these solutions that are built out there are built with the data of developed economies, that's the global north. When you begin to prompt these solutions, when you begin to ask for specific questions, it gives off data, it gives us output based on the data is trained, and most of this data is probably trained from a Western perspective. And when you begin to ask, okay, let me give you a specific example of what I mean. Recently, I came across a solution. So I was trying to create music for a number of content I'm doing. And I asked it, okay, I speak the Hausa language. Can you please generate me a song in Hausa language that would be it'll be contemporary and would suit the modern tune, prompts like that. So when I asked it, and the result was, it sounded good. The instrumentals came up. I was like, yeah, this is it. But when the lady started singing, I was like, nah, that's not the Hausa people. That's not how the Hausa people sing. So what it was singing was basically, it was a Chinese lady there was attempting to speak the Hausa language. Whilst it was a good attempt, I found it funny because without us taking charge of producing some of this content, would always have something like I've just mentioned to you, where you produce music that's supposed to sound like Hausa music, which is a language in Nigeria, but it comes across as if the lady is speaking Japanese. Oh, sorry, Chinese. So the point I'm saying is we need to look inwards to start seeing which of these complementary aspects of AI can we build. Which of this aspect, of course, we might not be able to build everything end to end because of the complexity and the nature of this, but we need to take charge and we need to start participating a bit more actively. There's a lot of startups around India, around Nigeria, and other part of developing countries that are trying to do several IT solutions, which is good, several AI solutions, which is good. But the problem is we need more. We have a lot of challenges that we need to navigate, and AI can really help us with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what do you do at NetSwitch Limited? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, NetSwitch Limited is a company that is registered here in Nigeria. We have a our products are centered around business and technology. So over the years, we've built several solutions. So to give you a specific example, in the last 2-3 years, we had a client that came up to us and said, "Okay, look, we have a number of agents that go to various sites, and some of the challenges they have is when the agents are supposed to go to some remote sites, they can just outsource it or just not go there at all and then find a way to enter some data." So they said that they need to be able to fight this. So what we sat down with the client, we understood the business process, how they did it, now how they currently do it, and then we came up with a nice dashboard, a web portal that grants them access. So for example, when the agents goes to sites, they can now take pictures, they can take videos, and they can now make a recommendation based on what they see and then upload it straight to the dashboard. And everyone within that agency that has the right access would be able to access that solution. So that's on one side. And then the next one is we do a lot of training. We train public sector organizations, private sector organizations around skill set that need to be filled. So for example, clients come up to us and say, "Okay, we've got this issues around performance, we've got this issues around communication," and would look at what the job description is. We look at the vision and mission of the organization, and then we try to develop a solution that meets that. Once we've done our gap analysis, then we'll be able to come up with requisite training. And so far so good. We've been able to achieve good results, good feedback from our clients, and we continue to do more and more of that. Then my own side, I also do keynotes as well as the trainings. I go out there and speak to organizations around the world around AI, around effective communications, around cybersecurity. So these are some of the solutions that we provide as a company.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sadiq. So I want to understand. You talk about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a lot you talk about. So that cybersecurity failures, they often come down to human behavior rather than technology. Help us understand about that.
And it's a very good question you ask. Um, when it comes to cybersecurity, a lot of people look at it from the technology standpoint. So I'm talking about the networks, I'm talking about the hardware solution and other investments around that, which is good. But cybersecurity goes beyond that. The most important factor in cybersecurity is a human factor. And there's a reason for that. So just imagine a company that sets up world-class infrastructure, they set up servers, they set up everything, they set up end-to-end encryption and everything else. And then one of the employees decides to click on a malicious link. Now, that act alone can disrupt the entire organization. We've seen it time and time and again, different organizations, big blue chip companies, Fortune 500 companies in the US, in Canada, in the UK. And in just this morning, I was watching Richie Sunak emphasizing the importance of cybersecurity. And when it comes to cybersecurity, a lot of people don't feel it's important. And the reason for that is cybersecurity is not important until it becomes important. When it becomes important is when you have a data breach. And when you have a data breach, it creates a lot of problems because a lot of organizations start scrambling, start rolling around like headless chicken, trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. But the damage is already done. So that's why we emphasize on human factor, human being the weakest link in a cybersecurity. So as much as organizations spend a lot of money to deploy high-end solutions, deploy effective AI-driven solutions, etc., 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 there's need to constantly train the workforce within that organization and then to retrain them. Okay, because the human element is the most complex when it comes to cybersecurity. You train an individual on the best practice. Perhaps you give him the 10 do's and don'ts when it comes to cybersecurity. Guess what happens once he steps out of that training? He goes up and commits the same things that he's been told not to do. So that's why some of the complexities around the mankind. So the best advice is to carry out regular trainings, even when you've carried out regular trainings, and then to repeat simulations. So these simulations in simple context is when you train them on how to figure out emails that are fraudulent. You need to be able to send out these emails in a controlled way so that to see if they would click. Once the individual clicked on this malicious email, then you know that, yeah, he needs to be retrained. So these are some of the factors that makes cybersecurity, the human factor, very, very important. And then sometimes fatigue can come in rather, when in the course of work, someone is very tired, he can easily slip, forget perhaps, or just wants to just quickly get it done and then make a mistake somewhere. So that's why it's important to actually train people and retrain them, because that's the best way to be able to overcome some of the cybersecurity challenges. And these challenges are constantly evolving. Thank you.
Absolutely, Sadiq. So this was the human element in companies. If you click on say any sort of a wrong sort of a links, then you get into trouble. Your organization falls into trouble. But what about those big companies which are there, which are holding your data? Does it also happen that somebody clicks on a raw sort of a link, and then we keep on getting emails that you know, you say your password may have been compromised, we are very sorry for what happened, and almost like the same templated email. Help us understand from that point of view, how should we understand cyber security from data privacy as well as, a data security point of view, which is with other companies which we think are spending a lot of money and time over this.
Yeah, it's a very good question you ask. The truth is, what happens to small organizations, the same thing happen in large organizations. So clicking on that email in a small organization can adequately affect a small organization as much as it can affect. So first things first, when you receive such an email, you want to verify that it's actually from a trusted, reliable source. And if it advises you that any of these platforms that you use has been compromised, endeavor to change the password, because that's one of the quickest ways to stay safe. And mostly the techniques are really the same around clicking on email, around an employee carelessly leaving his login somewhere or something around that. It tends to be the same. So that's why we need to remind organizations that, look, you have to train your staff, we have to retrain your staff. And when you do that, you are rest assured that they probably would stay safe. Then, of course, you have to do the basic cybersecurity hygiene practice, such as uh, keeping your devices up to date. A lot of organizations automatically roll out updates across the organizations, which is very good. But smaller organizations might struggle with this because they might have to do it manually. And then, of course, you need to put in your latest antivirus software, make sure that your latest antivirus solutions are up to date. Doing all these all this together ensures that even if a data breach happens, at least you're less vulnerable. Sometimes this cybersecurity breach happen through third parties. So an organization might not necessarily be hit directly, the third party that interfaces with that organization might be hit and eventually leads to the main organization being compromised. So cybersecurity is it's a complex domain that we need to manage with caution. We need to be able to ensure that we have policies around how we manage our third-party vendors. Third-party vendors are essentially organizations that work with our organizations to be able to carry out their business process or what service they deliver to the organization. So there's need to ensure how these organizations manage their data. And data privacy, data protection is actually a very big thing now in Europe, in Nigeria, and across the world. Data protection is becoming more important, and there's need to have constant review of these policies to ensure that every organization is up to date. Every organization that breaches these data protection policies, they get to face what the law says regarding this. And the reason for that is to ensure that data breaches are minimized to the very minimum. As I speak to you now, I believe some company somewhere is being hacked, unfortunately. But the only thing we can do is as organizations, is to try to keep up with the best practices, implement the best practices to ensure that even when these data breaches happen, the risk is minimized.
Absolutely, Dr. Sadiq. So, with AI coming in, do you think cybersecurity for a normal human being or for a even small business? Let's even for mid-sized businesses, will that be stronger because now search is happening through all these chat GPTs and Claude and all those perplexity, and even e-commerce is moving from those from just Google searches to Amazon to links through chat GPT and others. To help us understand from the cyber security as well as artificial point of intelligence point of view, will AI make cyber security better or will it make it not so good?
Thank you for that question. So you asked a double-edged sword question. So what that means is, on one hand, AI would accelerate the development of virus, accelerate the development of the. It just changes the game. It makes viruses to be developed much quicker, and on the other hand, on the good side, it makes virus detection to be quicker. It makes the entire identification of nefarious activities quicker. So let me give you a specific example. I'm an advisory board to a secondary school, and what we did was, okay, look, let's develop an AI policy. And one of the things was we used stakeholder engagement, whereby we came up with a draft framework, and we co-developed the rest of the document. And by so doing, one of the first thing we asked the staff and the other members of the stakeholders was, one, are we going to use AI? Yes or no, as a management. Okay. And then for students, are they going to use AI for their generative AI assignments and whatnot? Yes or no. So once we were able to answer this question, the next stage is, what kind of data should you even put in generative AI solutions, such as ChatGPT, OpenAI? What kind of data? And one of the things we agreed was, look, anything that is sensitive, such as the student's name, the name of the school, or any personal identifiable information that could be used to trace that student or to trace the school, you should not put that into the prompt. And the reason for that is most AIs use the prompt that we give it to learn. So today you say, okay, generate me curriculum for secondary school, like secondary school. It does that for you. But the next thing you say, okay, develop me curriculum that addresses XYZ. It records that. So after a while, it begins to build a pattern. And the generative AI actually asks you that, do you want this solution to be used to train our models? Most people just say yes, yes, yes. And by so doing, you're allowing the company and everyone else that had access to that back end, all the prompts that you've been doing. And by so doing, you're actually compromising your entire data infrastructure without knowing. Because the truth is, we don't know the full potential of this AI yet. We are still studying it. AI is still evolving. As I speak to you now, there are AI solutions that are being built perhaps daily, being released into the market, new patches being released into the market. So the prediction as to what would happen in the next 5 to 10 years, we don't really know, to be honest. Of course, there are good predictions, there are good indicators that give us a good idea. However, these are all barely speculation. So we have to be very, very careful when we use these AI solutions, when we interact with them. That AI solutions are becoming more smarter. They are learning as we go along because everything is centered around machine. So they're absorbing all this information. So we have to be careful so we don't compromise our information along the line.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's come to the communication part of it. And you talk about, being above average in communication. Tell us a bit about that. How do you attach that with leadership?
Communication is an important skill, perhaps even more important in some context than our technical skills. So what that means is humans interact. I'm talking to you right now. But the question is, are you understanding what I'm saying? That's a big question I have to ask myself. How can I understand that you're understanding? Through the feedback. You ask me a question, I reply you. And when you look at an average person, it doesn't matter whether he's English native English speaker or not. Communication is actually very, very challenging. And when you look at the leaders, like leaders of organizations, leaders around the world, they have to be able to communicate effectively. If you cannot communicate as a leader, it affects the results you will get. So, for example, I have an individual that cleans up my car. What I told him was one morning when I came back, I said, "Okay, look, I love the way you're cleaning the car, but can you please not use this material to clean my car?" I said, "Okay, no problem." So the next couple of weeks, I noticed that my car was getting dirty and dirty by the day. And that's when it occurred to me that he has stopped washing my car. The next question I asked myself, why did he stop? I now asked the person, his colleague, that, okay, what's going on? Why has he stopped washing my car? And his reply was, "You told him to stop washing your car." I said, "No." And that was not my instruction. My instruction was, don't use this particular material to clean my car. I thought I was clear, but apparently I was not. So I had to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, look, I gave an instruction. It was not followed. Why was it not followed? Because of miscommunication, misinterpretation. This happens not just in my office environment, across the world. When you give out instructions as a leader, you want your subordinates, your colleagues, your stakeholders to be able to give a responding action by carrying out what is required. Sometimes the followers may not be able to carry out such actions, largely because the message was not clear enough. And as a leader, when you speak, you need to look out for feedback. Is your information understood? Sometimes, as a leader, when you speak to your team members, you give them instructions. You have to ask them, okay, what did you understand? What was the instruction? What did I tell you to do? And they come to you and say, oh, you asked us to do this and you asked us to do that. And then you are rest assured that they get it. Because communication, the dynamics of the mind is very complicated, and there's a reason for that. Because as you're speaking to some adults, sometimes their mind might be elsewhere, and when you give them that instruction, they might not get it in the context in which you want them to get it. So that's why communication is very, very difficult, and we try to use every platform that we get to remind leaders that you have to communicate effectively, and you have to use all the various and techniques. Just to give you a specific example, the speech that goes, "I have a dream," was said well over 60 years ago. But as I tell this to you now, you are able to relate to it. Why? Because the speech has a certain pattern to it. It has what they call cadence. Cadence is basically the rhythm, is to do with the pace and the repetition in which words or phrases are used. So, for example, in that speech, I have a dream. He repeated the word, "I have a dream that one day." Then he goes, "I have a dream that one day." Then he goes, "I have a dream." So through that repetition, it reinforces learning. It ensures that the listener is able to listen, because by the act of repetition, you are activating the reticular activating system to tell the human mind that what I'm saying is very important, and take note, take action. It goes across, even here in Africa. We have, in more recent time, we have the current vice president, who is a renowned orator. He speaks very well and eloquently. Then we have the likes of Nelson Mandela, who is a world-renowned orator, and is through his oratorical prowess that made him to be able to communicate well with his people, and be able to that enable him to command respect, and then command his people to be able to fight the apartheid regime, and then liberated the country, and so many others. Obama, it's just endless. The list is endless. So every leader, my advice to you is work on your communication skill. And communication skill is not something you master in a day. It's not really a destination, it's a journey. You evolve daily as you learn to, as you listen to feedback. Just in a more recent time, I was looking at a video of the mayor of New York, where he said in a short video clip that, "I've been told to stop using the word ultimate." And he gave examples where a lot of people now quote the fact that he was using the word ultimate, ultimate, ultimate. And he promised that he's going to work on that, and is going to use the word ultimate less and less. So that's a good leader who is taking feedback. Like I've said, and I'll say it again, effective communication is all about feedback. It's all about you taking in from what the audience are giving you, or your subordinates, or your perhaps stakeholders. Are they understanding what I'm saying? Do they like the way I'm speaking? These are all strategies. There are so many of them that I cannot even exhaust right now, but these are just a few that I would like to bring to our attention right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sadiq. One last question I want to understand is, in today's time, when there is so much of work which is happening remotely, for a leader, if you are giving them some instruction, you can immediately check if the person is in front of you. But when you are giving instructions remotely, how do you ensure that your communication has been above average and that it has been understood? Means a leader, for them it is very difficult to ask them separately, have you understood it? Then there will be a lot of back and forth with 200 people at the same time. Help us understand from that aspect in terms of average, above average communication.
All right. As a leader, we need to maintain an above average communication. And above average means that we have to keep practicing, keep learning the art of effective communication, keep looking and keep an eye out on the feedback, the response from the participants. Now, in the context of virtual work environment, the same principle applies. Okay, so if you're managing a broad team where you are giving out instructions, I believe there will be perhaps leaders in between that help disseminate this message. So after you've given out clear instructions as to these are the deliverables or these are the instructions, ensure that that feedback is given back to you, that yes, I've understood what you said. This is what you want us to do. And in my own path, I'll make sure that we do X, Y, Z. Okay. And when you've done that verbal communication, it's good to actually follow it up with an email saying that, following our virtual meeting, we agreed that this will be done, that will be done. And the following are the list of deliverables. So you are solidifying the first meeting that you had with an email, and that email enables the listener or the recipient to fully articulate and understand what you are trying to say. Because the truth is, when face-to-face communication is good, it's easily, you can use it to easily gauge whether the participants or the listeners have understood what you're saying or not. However, in a virtual environment, it's a bit more challenging because you're not seeing them, because sometimes during meetings people can actually turn off their camera and then step away, and you have no idea if they're actually there or not. But through feedback, through asking, okay, do you have any questions, uh ask, we can even like developing an action item where you delegate specific tasks to specific individuals, and then pointing out to those individuals and say, okay, based on the instructions I gave you, uh what are you supposed to do, or can you like repeat the instructions that were given to you? And through that, it ensures that those working in a virtual environment are actually on board in this, and then it makes the life of the leader much easier, because he's given out the message, he's given an instruction, and they have understood that by giving me the feedback or their own understanding of that, and then they can go ahead and carry out the job description that's been given to them.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Sadiq. There is so much to learn about AI, cybersecurity, and leadership communication. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of leaders, a lot of uh, uh, clients would want to connect with you. What is the best way for them to do so?
You can reach me on sadiqnasir.com. That is my name, SADIQ NASIR. You can reach out to me if you need someone to speak at your event in terms of keynote. If you have a specific training needs that you want us to discuss, we can always jump on a discovery call to find out what exactly you're looking at solving. Thank you.
Wonderful. With this, it's set up on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.